Quote number 1. Appreciation is a wonderful thing. It makes what is excellent in others belong to us as well. This means that appreciation is actually something which is very constructive for us. When we are appreciating someone, we are actually giving him or her a silent message that what they are doing is making a difference in the world. Furthermore, whenever we appreciate someone, we are in reality relating to something that the other person is doing or saying. We are seeing ourselves in him or her so that somehow that excellence being demonstrated becomes a part of us. It impacts us inside and it is stored in your memory forever. So we should appreciate excellence whenever we see it so that it becomes a part of us. Quote number 2. Judge a man by his questions rather than his answers. This means that the actual way to determine the potential of someone is to listen carefully not to the answers that he or she is giving to anyone but the kind of questions he or she is asking. This is the actual measure of someone's intelligence level. If we look at history closely, the greatest of scientists made all the inventions not by answering a lot of questions thrown at them but actually asking a lot of right questions continuously and consistently. One thing to learn from this is that we should keep asking the right kind of questions to solve the problems of our life. Quote number 3. Man is free at the moment he wishes to be. This means that freedom is actually a choice that any person can take at any point in time in their life. We can never be free unless we want to be. We can choose either to spend our life chained in our own thoughts, desires, fears, etc., or you can choose to be completely free from all these kinds of chains. We restrict our own selves even when circumstances are trying to teach something. We don't need to go somewhere or do something in order to achieve freedom. Quote number 4. Life is a shipwreck, but we must not forget to sing in the lifeboat. This means that life is actually cruel and unfair, but what one must remember is to be happy and try to use the circumstances or situations to his or her own advantage. Literally, in the time if we are on a ship which is about to sink in the deep sea, we must take the lifeboat and be happy that God gave us another life and be happy. One learning from this is that no matter what kind of problems we have in our lives, we should be focused on solving them and not waste our time on being sad and stressed about them. Instead, we should be happy. Quote number 5. May God defend me from my friends. I can defend myself from my enemies. This means that it is easy for you to recognize who your enemies are, who are actually trying to break you or harm you in any way, and how to deal with them the right way. But it is a big challenge to recognize which friends are against you or are trying to harm you in any way. Friends are people you can count on and trust even in the worst times of your life. If they turn against you, only God can protect you in that situation because your friends know you very well and know what your strengths and weaknesses are. So if they attack, that attack would be of much greater intensity than your enemies. Quote number 6. Every man is a creature of the age in which he lives and few are able to raise themselves above the ideas of the time. This means that every human being is a part of the society in which we live in. He or she is part of the system that rules the society and the ideology that exists. Amongst them, a minority also exists which thinks differently and acts differently. These people are far ahead of the time in which they live in. They are the real inventors who are able to think big and utilize the resources available to come up with something that is magical and that has never existed before. They are actually able to do it not because they are unmatchable, talented or extremely intelligent, but because they have a certain kind of mindset that they have developed over time which is doing something different. Quote number 7. To hold a pen is to be at war. This means that if you are a writer, no matter what type and what level you are at, you actually wage a war against everything around you. And the war is even more challenging if you are writing about truth. To bring light to the true issues around you is not a child's play. Truth is always bitter and people actually try to avoid truth instead of accepting it. Fitting in a system is actually very easy, but to challenge it is the real battle. But it is important that someone should fight or otherwise the problems will grow worse in the future. Quote number 8. Each player must accept the cards life deals him or her, but once they are in hand, he or she alone must decide how to play the cards in order to win the game. This means that one should accept his or her reality and should deal with it. Life gives everyone a random set of cards. Now it is up to a person to make the best use of those cards in order to win the game. Life gives a person some kings, queens and aces, but also gives some twos, threes and fives. Now it is completely up to the person to use the higher rank cards and the lower rank cards to his or her advantage. These rank cards can be strengths and weaknesses for a particular person. Another thing to understand here is that a person must never compare his or her cards with anyone else and be sad that his or her cards are not well shuffled or well distributed. One learning from this is that we should never complain about the cards given to us by life and should make best use of them as much as possible. Quote number 9, no problem can withstand the assault of sustained thinking. This means that no problem is so big that you cannot solve it. If we look closely at history, people were able to solve those kinds of problems which were impossible to solve for the entire world. They did this even though information was not very easily accessible at that time because technology was not well developed. One had to travel a lot of miles to acquire a few pieces of information. But they still were able to make the impossible possible. The right approach to solving a problem is to continuously think about it and question it, to remove all the layers and then to find out a solution.